Alright guys, that's Scrappy again. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy reveals one of the key secrets behind OpTic's potential upcoming success this season, given that Mercules is not just doing it in the server, he's doing it outside of the server as well. Karma reveals that after their series against Surge, he was not happy with the majority of players on that team and saying Merc, he knows what he's talking about, and Mercules himself making it very clear to the rest of the team he was not happy with their plays. He wanted a clean 3-0 yesterday against Surge. It didn't happen. Merc calls out the team as a result. Is this the mentality which might well help OpTic down the line, especially in key moments such as the last few days when a bit of a reset has been necessary? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. We're going to start here. I've never seen this stat before. It's an absolute quality Brian stat. TJ's record on match days that take place on the same day as an Eagles playoff game, because there was some discussion during the series that he played against OpTic that maybe TJ was just throwing so that he could make sure he watches the Eagles game. Anyway, he's got a 3-6 record on those days. On the contrary, the Eagles are 3-1 when playing on the same day as TJ's match day. They currently lead the 49ers, so whatever. But you can see that some of these series are way back in the day. We're talking a victory against Curse New York back in 2014, right? So yeah, we've gone way back in time here, but a few notable instances over the last couple of years or so. There was also quite a bit of talk lately about the movement in this game and whether it's going to change, right? And what we're going to see, because Black Ops 7... good game, I think most people would suggest. Definitely from a competitive perspective, it's better than we've had in quite some time. However, it hasn't sold especially well. There's probably a few reasons for that, mainly because it's BO7 following BO6. I think basically Activision have said we ain't doing that anymore. Nobody cares about the second year's game when it's back-to-back. And, you know, pretty straightforward, to be honest. However, the movement is a question mark, because next year or this year, later this year, we are going back to an Infinity War title. It's going to be Modern Warfare 4 or something of that ilk. And it's not going to be an advanced movement game. You would imagine it's probably going to be Joe Seacott back to his best. Now, there is discussion on this because more casual players do tend to prefer less movement in the game. So what is the appropriate balance here, really? Anyway, T-Dog says we should have a classic playlist with no sliding and a dolphin dive. Basically make it like Black Ops 2 kind of movement again. But is this a good idea? People are talking about it now. Do people want to have, you know, the slower shooters? Does that want to be, you know, should we have that back in COD? Aches talks a little bit about the other skill gap that is generated, because, you know, we talked about this the other day. Slash's perspective is similar to Akes's, that he doesn't really like the Omni movement because he thinks it takes away from the skill of positioning and strategy and teamwork to an extent, rather than using the movement to bail you out. Now, look, obviously Akes's success was generally pre-jetpack and also post-jetpack, because he won the World War II championship as well. So with all that in mind, pretty straightforward, I think, for Akes that he would be on that side of the discussion. But other players will be on a very different side of the discussion. But, you know, Doug, Akes, Slasher, some of the old guards, they have a different perspective to some of the newer generation. Does that mean that Modern Warfare 4 is going to be good? I would hold off on that assessment, certainly for now. We also got this from Exceed. Big shout out to OpTic letting me play from their headquarters this weekend, tech quarters. Beyond appreciated. Great guys out there. So, you know, pretty cool stuff, right? Exceed comes in, gets the OpTic buff because I think he was waiting for a PC to get sorted and everything. So he played from the OpTic facility, obviously won their games this weekend, so Exceed officially back in business. But this is how it looked in terms of the standings. So Ravens, they're sitting at 20 points. These map win losses still aren't right, but the actual seedings are pretty much bang on the money here. So yeah, Thieves sitting at 2-2. We saw that earlier today. Ravens at, I think it's actually a similar, actually we did bring it up here. Yeah, 2-2 as well for the Ravens, but their map count is 7-9. So anyway, this is how it looks. Falcons up to the 6th seed. We have the pretty clear-cut 4 best teams in OpTic, Gentamates, Toronto and FaZe, in some order or another. Of course, you can debate exactly what that looks like. OpTic getting to 4 wins, the first team to do so. That means they will be guaranteed to the winners bracket. You can't start and losers with 4. It's difficult to start and losers with 3, to be honest. I guess technically it is still possible, but probably all of these teams will be fine. But it's not a guarantee, right? There are 7 qualifiers still to come. OpTic's upcoming matches, just out of interest, if we look at their upcoming games, you will find that they play Thieves next weekend. So that's an important one for sure, because well, Thieves currently on the struggle bus. They've just played, obviously, last night, Toronto, and got slammed. OpTic would not be an easy series. And then OpTic do play the Ravens. They do get that Exceed matchup, which would be pretty interesting as their final game of the stint. But let's not forget, last year they turned up to Madrid as the #1 seed in the tournament. This year, they're looking to potentially do something similar again. But obviously, last year's Madrid event was not their home major. It was actually a Toronto-hosted event, but it was over in Spain. This year, it will be their home major in Dallas. So it's kind of more of an important deal. But where do they sit right now? This is the question that Scump and Zinni were talking about. Do you put OpTic still as the #1 team in the game, or could it be FaZe? Difficult to make it anybody else, right? Gentlemate have looked good, but it's, tough to put them over OpTic right now. FaZe are the team that you could argue, right? I think I would probably still just about have OpTic as #1. But I think the recency bias is understandable in this case. I mean, OpTic were considered the best team and still maybe are. FaZe come in and 3-0 them. They've also had a very difficult schedule, FaZe, and they've handled business, generally speaking, very well. So you could argue FaZe are the best. Like, in my opinion, going into that OpTic versus FaZe series, I thought if you played it 100 times, OpTic probably win 70, I don't know, some 70, 75 maybe. Now, that series, of course, FaZe did win. Now, I think it's more of a 50-50, right? Like, if OpTic were to play FaZe again today, I think it would be a pretty 50-50 matchup. Maybe I'd still slightly favour OpTic, but maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. So I think you can still argue OpTic are the #1 team in the game, but it is a question right now. I think for the OpTic guys, maybe feeling like, okay, maybe we're not favourites anymore. FaZe have beaten us the other day. They're taking over the favourites category. That might not be a bad idea going into the major, but of course it also depends how these other teams get on. benjay was talking a bit about Shotzzy too. Now this, to be fair, was before he played the series against Surge and did very well, dropped some good numbers, and he's no longer the lowest hardpoint KD in the league, but he was for a brief period after losing to FaZe. So benjay had a few thoughts on that. But the main clips I wanted to share that were most interesting here is Dashy's running around on Meltdown well, he's watching people run around on Meltdown anyway, is Mercules and what's happening behind the scenes with Merc and also in the front of center, I suppose. Now, we know that Mercules, from a statistical perspective, has been phenomenal for OpTic. We've kind of called them a bit of a bailout for some of their underwhelming plays in these first few series, and maybe you could argue to an extent that was a similar story yesterday. But I think the question for Merc is, we know that OpTic, I think a lot of OpTic fans this weekend, certainly the loss to FaZe, would have felt like a little bit of familiar territory. Sometimes OpTic come back from a break, they're not so locked in, they're not so well prepared, and they let a series go that maybe they shouldn't. And even in December, there was a couple of series against Rocker and stuff where, they had to dig pretty deep to get the victory. Arguably, it could have been cleaner than it was. We've seen this type of stuff before with OpTic, and, well, will it be a similar trend with this iteration with Mercules, or is Merc the saviour to a different level, right? Like, are we talking that he's not just going to turn the team around after what happened last season with all the chaos and then statistically turn up, but also be the perfect fit for the team inside of the game? But what does that look like long term, right? Now he's been integrated with OpTic for a little bit, integrated with the OpTic culture. What's that look like? And, well, according to Dashy, it's only for the positive, because after losing the Surge control or the overload, very easily could have been, okay, like, whatever, we'll get them next map, it doesn't really matter, which they did. They closed it out 3-1, and some teams would be like, okay, whatever, it's a 3-1 series win, it is what it is, back on track. And I think generally that's true, but it seems like Merc is kind of a perfectionist in the sense that he wants to win every single map, and he wasn't happy with losing that overload to Surge. He thinks they should have won it for a couple of reasons, and Mercules made that point very clear. And on having heard that, and also having heard Karma say a similar thing, that's made Dashy and the rest of the team think, okay, this is about time that we lock in right about now.
I would put FaZe #1 right now. I would.
Oh, well, you can go ahead. He's the one doing it, so. But I kind of agree with him. I mean,
I don't want him. Listen, I want to be as fair as possible. They won a big match against us, and they've played the hardest teams by far so far.
You can't deny the results. All we have to go off right now is the matches. Scrims, scrims are scrims, but so far FaZe has looked incredible. So they've had the hardest strength of schedule, and they're 3-1.
I will put our boys second personally. Do you like that?
And then us second.
Gentlemate third,
obviously.
Then Koi 4.
Yeah.
I think Toronto 4.
After today, it's impossible not to put them 4.
And now,
you'll see that Ant right now has the lowest KD and hardpoint in the league. Now, he's been good in the other two modes, but hardpoint right now has been a real struggle for him online. So at the moment, they've been getting away with this because in a lot of these series, when he's dropping a stinky and hard point, his fucking ARs are going double pause. But you saw what happened in this match when his ARs were not going double pause. At one point, Merc in the beginning of that game was double negative. They have like legitimately zero pressure on the map and they're just getting farmed. So it's like, I do think he's got to figure out his style a bit. I mean, he is a risky player. He takes a lot of pinches. It's rely on his team to make a lot of plays 3v4. And it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a bit of a funky situation.
Because after, like, we lost the map, right? And then I've never heard Mason say this, man. And he was like, fucking, he was like, yo, why do we rap right here on this overload? This was unacceptable. And I looked over and I was like, what? Whoa. I said, yeah, that's unacceptable. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, yeah, Mason, yeah, I agree, dude. Yeah, that was my bad also. Yeah, that play. Yeah, you're right.
Unacceptable. I agree,
like,
man.
I'm like,
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, man.
And I'm like, yeah, we got it. No, don't worry, Mason. We'll clean it up. Yeah, you're good. You can go home. You can go. Good shit today. Good shit, yo. That actually, first round lagging. Mason's just trip pause. Good shit, Mace. I don't know what the fuck was happening, map one. Good shit. I'm dying at a P4. I gotta stop dying at a fucking P4 window. I just love challenging.
You do love challenging.
I'm done though. I gotta be stronger, especially for Mason before he says something. That's what I was saying after the map. I literally said, I swear I was like, was I blacking out? Maybe it's me. I think it was me.
Okay, run it up the left ramp.
And then he looked at and David said, you guys are all faded except for Merc. And I'm like, that sounds about right. You guys are all faded except for Mason. Good shit today. Everybody else, dude. This is not normally like this. It's like talking to him like a little bit of favorites, you know, like the teachers. It's not usually like this.
Oh, he's definitely got a favorite, bro. He's definitely got a favorite.
Damon will like not admit it, but it's me. But like, he just like, well, he'll say it's Merc out loud because it's just like, you know what I mean? He's kids playing perfect COD. Damon's just is Yoda of COD, so he has to tip it.
You are? Okay, I'm gonna go.
But Damon, come on, you know.
So this was that map 3 overload, right? Mercules was 27 in 23. There were a few key moments that just didn't go OpTic's way and mistakes that they made. Okay, look, Lunarz isn't going to drop a 1.7 every time, so that happens, and it's probably not going to happen too many times again, certainly not against OpTic, but also Gwinn at a 0.7 himself. So it's not like it was only Lunarz taking over that totally won them the game. There were other factors in play as well. But yeah, just thought it was interesting, right? Karma talking to the OpTic guys and saying, look, you guys, yeah, not maybe in the best spot this weekend, but Merc knows what he's talking about, and Merc is here to keep the boys on the right track regardless of what happens. And I think that's such an important thing for OpTic as well, that they've got a player like Mercules not only dropping 1.3s, 1.7s sometimes, but also that can help hold them accountable, right? Because it's like back in the day when OpTic had that drama in Black Ops 4, and you had the two sides of the team. There was the kind of Scump, TJ, like Dashy side, and then there was the Crim, like kind of Coach TP and Karma side. And those two factions, as it were kind of warring in their respective approaches to the game and some of these other things, and it caused all sorts of drama and problems behind the scenes that year. Karma needs to make sure, I mean, of course the players are on board with Karma, but if Karma's got something to say and he's not very happy about the way things are going, he doesn't want the OpTic boys to say, well, you know, we're back-to-back world champions. We'll get better. We'll get it. We'll fix it for champs or whatever. Like, we're going to still go back-to-back and all this. You know, if Karma's not seeing the progress that he wants, if he's not seeing the lock-in that he wants out of the players, then he's obviously going to make that clear. And they know that that mentality leads to success. But it's good to have a player like Merc who's very much locked into that opinion, and it could be a difference maker this season for the Green Wall. So very much true to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.